Hello, and welcome to Best of 5, your weekly FGC talk show, presented by four dudes and their friends. I'm Efren, and Mike has a very important announcement that he just whispered in my ear before the show.
Well, I've sold out.
You've sold out?
I've sold out. I'm just admitting it outright.
How have you sold out? Is it...
I'm trying to get sponsored by Costco.
This...
Everything I'm wearing today is from Costco.
Yeah?
This sweatsuit, these Kirklands, the Air Kirklands.
Now, I have to say...
These are the only shoes you could get delivered to you by Instacart. Right? Like, you're done. Like, oh no, I stepped in dog poo. What am I going to do with my Jordans? You can't do anything.
Instacart that shit.
But you can Instacart a pair of Kirklands.
The Kirklands look pretty good. It looks like you're, I don't know, training for a boxing match. But that's not actually what you whispered to me earlier that I thought was the real revelation.
Okay, what's the real revelation?
Which I think you should share with our audience at home, which is, of course, that the Earth is flat.
Oh, okay, yeah, we're woke here.
Oh, God.
What are we doing, Steve?
Why are Steve and John on this show?
I don't know what's going on. I'm just here for the CPT stuff. I don't know what y'all are doing.
Speaking of John and Steve, welcome, John and Steve. John Guerrero,
Hi.
of course, a.k.a. Velociraptor. He writes and works at Event Hubs. Shouts to that guy. He, little, yellow, different, is trying to get sponsored by Hershey Cookies.
These are so good.
Oh, really?
You should really try Hershey's Cookie Layer Crunch Vanilla Cream. They are delicious.
Now, John, did you partake in anything that might make you more inclined to want to be snacking on chocolates in the middle of the show?
Yeah, I had one Hershey's Cookie Vanilla Crunch, and then now I want 10 more.
Okay.
And no, I didn't, Efren. That's a terrible accusation.
Okay. Steve Jurek, a.k.a. Ace King Offsuit, he writes for Esports.
Allegedly, I do.
I saw one of your articles get retweeted by Xiaohai.
Yeah. He was pretty active on Twitter this week.
He was quite active indeed.
We'll talk about that in a second.
So if you're joining us for the first time, like I said, we talk about fighting games mostly. We have all kinds of cool things to talk about today. We don't have a guest because we decided to block out the entire time that we usually dedicate to a desk for Donka to try out Injustice 2 live on the show.
I've never played it. I was thinking,
but you're super excited to play it, right?
I'm excited to say something about it.
All right, so
come on
the show tonight. We will be talking about results. We will be talking about ELEAGUE. We'll be talking about all kinds of other stuff. I think I'm the only one that got hands on.
We
with
even have
Ed.
Marvel to talk about this week.
I know. Believe
I
that.
played some Ed.
You played some Ed.
Yeah.
Education on that.
Capital ED. Yeah. He's good. He's fun.
You know what? I think it's about that time to kick off one of them recaps. Steve.
Let's do it. We had 3 Pro Tour events this weekend. Let's start in Latin America with the first online event. That was won by Kaba. You look at the screen, you're seeing a lot of familiar faces. The people who were putting in work last season, a lot of them are still doing the job in season 2. Kaba is a guy you've seen multiple times in top 8s, but this is the first time he was able to get a win. It's his first ever CPT win, so congratulations to him. Mena RD once again top 2. That man is going to be a problem. I believe he's coming to Combo Breaker, so excited to see what he can do. And then you see the rest of the top 8 right there. That wasn't the only online event this weekend. We had one for North America, the western half of the country, so the western U.S. and western Canada. And that was won by the boxer himself, Mr. P.R. Balrog, taking it in first place over Master Skills in the grand finals. F-Champ making top 4 as well. Look at the bottom of the list, though. 801 Strider and Samurai.
The two guys that just got dropped by Winter Fox?
They were teammates on Winter Fox up until Saturday when they announced that they were leaving the team. It's on good terms, and we wish them well. We hope they find a new team. We hope Winter Fox continues to do well in the FGC. But, hey, pretty good pickups if you're looking to pick somebody up there.
Samurai for sure.
You're not feeling Strider?
Not since 4.
He had a pretty good showing earlier in this season 2. I think he got top 8 at final round, the first season 2 major. So,
all right.
Yeah, he's in the top 50 in points. He's finding his groove again. He did have his struggles in season 1, but right now he's getting back into that flow. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a few more of these recaps a little later in the season,
and
maybe even a
speaking of
little higher
flow,
up.
Urban Flow got 3rd, and he has been a pretty well-known online player. I'm not sure he's made it out to any tournaments, but he's another of the Karen army, and has been. I think he's one of the higher-ranked players online. I've actually never heard of Master Skills, which is pretty rare for a player of Street Fighter V. So, if anyone in the chat knows anything about him, I would be intrigued.
Yeah, shout it out.
He has. I think he has skills on a master level.
But does he have the skills that can pay the bills? That's the real question.
Well, he didn't get any. I don't think he got any money for this. So
John is not appreciating any of my humor tonight, and frankly, I'm not appreciating that in return. It's reverse unappreciation on that, John. Now, let me ask you a question. Just catch me up on this. CPT points for online qualifiers are the same as CPT points for an IRL tournament?
just like last year, same. They're all on the same level, online and offline ranking events. So winning here is worth just as much as winning West Coast Warzone.
Wow.
Whether that should be the case or not, that's up for debate, but it is what it is.
Well, before we get into the IRL CPT tournaments of the weekend, which is the only one, if I'm not mistaken, better in Melbourne, what's been the response to these online tournaments? I know the first time they did their CPT events this season, you were annoyed because it was such a late notice. Hey, by the way, guys, sign up because it's tomorrow, kind of thing. But aside from that, the historic critique is always it's online, it shouldn't count because, connections. Does anybody have anything to add on how they've been received this time around?
John?
Or Steve?
Oh, go ahead, John.
Well, just briefly, it felt like they were suddenly announced again this year, but people are kind of, I feel, more settled perhaps, and I don't remember seeing a whole lot of complaints about it. It was fun to say something immediately, but after that, it kind of died down, and I think that the event ran pretty well and smoothly, and people are happy with the opportunity more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wrong to say that online events don't have a place in a tour like this. You look at what KI has done with the KI World Cup. They do a lot of their qualifiers online, both through the in-game leaderboards and the standalone events, and that works very well because that game has excellent netcode. Street Fighter V, not so much at this point. Hopefully, it will get a little better with this upcoming CFN update. But yeah. I think a lot of the complaints that you heard last year that you're not hearing this year are people just knowing what the game is at this point. It was only a few months old last year. Now it's a year and a half old. It is what it is, basically. Right. And it's not going to change based on outcry from how well or how poorly an online event does. What I will say, though, is I will at least give Capcom credit for splitting the events regionally. So now you're not having to play New York versus California, or you're not having to play Mexico versus Brazil. They did take some steps to try and improve the online experience. So kudos to that.
I will say, in regards to the online, I think the biggest issue with Street Fighter V Online isn't actually the match-to-match connection, which locally can be quite good. Mm-hmm. It can also be bad. It depends. Mm-hmm. But more so on the server end and how often it's down and how difficult it can be to actually get the match started with someone. Okay. But I think it's good enough to be appropriate for an online event, and I think that the bad of, rollback happening sometimes is generally mitigated by the fact that some people like, Urban Flow or Master Skills are able to, enter tournaments that maybe otherwise they wouldn't be entering.
Sure. Okay.
I remember a couple years ago back in Street Fighter 4 when they first did these, this is how the world got introduced to KnuckleDu. The Punk got into the regional finals last year through his performance in an online qualifier. So there is certainly merit. There's certainly a reason to have these online events, to bring players who otherwise wouldn't be able to go to a Combo Breaker or West Coast Warzone or whatever. Bring them into the fold.
So as far as I can tell, according to the chat here, the online tournaments they received as many entrants as like they capped out on those. So that has to tell you something, right?
Yeah, the response has been pretty good so far. I don't have the exact numbers on those off the top of my head, but those brackets were looking pretty full when I checked them out this weekend.
And they're always quite stacked as well for the most part.
Then you get assholes who sign up for online tournaments.
That was the first and last online tournament I ever signed up for.
Signed up for and not actually competed in. Damn, Donka. Same thing happened at DreamHack.
Online tournaments are fine, and if you want to play in them, that's fine. But the issue I have with them is they actually take longer than offline tournaments because they're not necessarily ran in like a pool format. You're just sitting there waiting for your next match the whole time.
Okay.
So I wonder, those have made leaps and bounds of improvement. And then shout outs to, I don't know if I is still in charge of that, but
I'm willing to bet he is.
They've gotten a lot better as time has gone on.
Let's move on to Battle Arena Melbourne, a CPT premier event that had some pretty hype stuff.
It was the only offline event of the weekend. It is a premier, one of the few chances for Australian players to pick up points since, as of now, they're not included in either of the Asia regions for online tournaments. But unfortunately, the home country got locked out. No Australians made top 16.
Wow.
That one was won by Bonchan, who won it with Nash, the character we all thought was dead and buried. Guess what? Dude just won a premiere with him from the winner's bracket.
Now, I wish I had my tweet pulled up, because I said he was mid-tier the day that Season 2 dropped.
Meaning he was still viable?
I don't know about viable. I mean, he's obviously more viable than I thought. I still don't think he's amazing. We'll talk more about that later. But I didn't think he sucked. So I'm just shouting myself out here.
My favorite part about Battle Arena Melbourne, before we get back to Bonchan, was this right here, guys. I don't know if y'all saw this clip. This is Daigo knocking himself out by shooting a boom into the Aegis reflector. My favorite part of this entire clip. I'm gonna rewind real quick.
Yeah, you can see his boys laughing in the background pretty hard.
Bonchan and Mago losing their shit, cracking up back there.
And Daigo laughs. Daigo laughs at it too, and the guy never lets any emotion seep out. Like almost any time in his life, I don't think he's ever smiled. But he cracked up right there, even though he just like threw himself. Is it losers or winners? Did he eliminate himself?
He I can't remember if he was in losers there. I want to say he.
I mean, still, it's a big deal. It's Daigo. He's trying to crack some top 8 brackets. Needs to get kind of back to his former glory. But then here we are seeing him bounce sonic booms off of an Aegis and knock himself into the losers bracket. It's like, man, you know.
All right.
But he still had a good time doing it.
But back to the actual results. Bonchan came out and said, "Just play with who you want to play. If you like Nash, use Nash. I just proved that you can do it. Granted, he's one of the highest level players on the planet, but." What does that say? I mean, we're going to retouch this when we get to the block grab. That's a hint on what we're talking about for block grab. But Street Fighter V and character selection. Just go with whoever you want.
Bonchan is like a truly gifted scrub. That's how I feel about him at this point. He's like truly gifted at the art of Street Fighter. Like he's amazing at it, right? But like Sagat was not that good when he continued to play Sagat. And Nash is not that good now. I mean, it's definitely possible, and he's proving to make things happen with these characters, but it's a lot harder on yourself. Then again, I think saying that is a really nice breath of fresh air, because whether or not, I'm of the mentality that you should pick the best character in the game if you want to win. Go ahead. I don't see any fault in that. But a lot of people do like to hear about character loyalty. So, having a top player come out and win with Nash and say, pick Nash, I think it looks good for the game. I think it's nice. I think it's nice to have that point of view. You have the Bonchan, you have the Sanford, and you got to figure out which side you're on.
Now, of course, Infiltration famously said Capcom is, cut off his arms and legs or something like that, that he said at the beginning of the season. Does that hold true?
They made him a lot worse, but clearly he's the base, and yet again, we'll talk about this more later, but Nash at a base is a very similar character to how he always was. A few of his bells and whistles are gone, But his fireball, his main tool, is exactly the same.
All right.
And again, I think this was something I touched on last week, where I feel like there are tiers in the game, but the tiers aren't so far separated that you can't compete with just about any character. I mean, we saw Vega win an event. We saw Nash win an event. Chun-Li, everyone thought she was terrible. She's still, you're still seeing her in various top eights. So as long as you know what you're doing with your character, I don't think you're going to be completely outclassed in any event you go to. You might have difficult matchups, you probably will, but you'll still have a puncher's chance.
But what about Fang? You can't have that whole conversation and not talk about that character.
Well, what do you have to say about him, John?
Well, I mean, just the general idea that has come out of the community conversation is that Fang is in his own tier all alone, and that no matter how many times they've changed him, it's always just been for the worse. So the running joke is now, whenever anyone talks about nerfing or buffing or anything like that, or the tier lists in general, they always end it with nerf Fang, and it's just become a joke. He's like the Dan tier of the game in the at least in the community's eyes. So I wonder if, while I agree much with what Steve is saying, I still have to ask, well, what about Fang? Can you win with that character?
I don't think you could. I think there's a few characters probably too bad to a tournament this high level actually come through with the win. But you could do quite well. And yeah, I'm one of the few people apparently who thinks I think Street Fighter V might be like the most balanced mainstream fighting game we've ever had.
For better or worse?
For better or worse. I mean, there's bad things about that. People often say that the game is somewhat homogenized, and I think some of that is true. But as a result of some of that homogeny, the game is very balanced.
All right. We have here a clip from this is the grand finals match between Bonchan and Valoran. Cammy's been getting a lot of action recently. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit when we get to the E-League results.
There's actually a pretty funny moment in this match. In the last round, Bonchan gets jumped over and accidentally does Tragedy Assault, Nash's jumping, head grab move. Mm-hmm. And it gets blocked and Valoran doesn't punish. And this was to reset grand finals. So it's at the very end of the match. I don't think you have the clip already, but
I'm going to fast forward to it.
It's pretty tricky.
Check this out.
I think it comes... Go back? Well, I think it might have been an earlier round. Regardless...
Well, this whole thing was poetic, though, because it was... I mean, Donkey, you said a little bit earlier that you feel like this is good for the game, and I absolutely agree with that, because Nash went from one of arguably the best characters in the community's eyes, especially when Infiltration was doing his thing with him. And then the lag was reduced a little bit, and everyone thought, well, that was why Nash was good. And he slowly just declined all the way till now. In Season 2, people are saying he might be the worst character in the game, and I think that's a bit much. But he definitely went down the tier list, and especially starting with the way Infiltration was talking about him, at the beginning of the season. But you also have Bonchan, who was on the top of his game maybe just before Street Fighter V came out. And Street Fighter V happened, and a lot of his buddies, like Tokido and company, they did exceptionally well. But Bonchan was kind of left in the dust. And I have these two figures that were on top, went to the bottom, and now they're coming back up. Plus, Nash is like Frankenstein, right? So he's resurrected in some sense. It's poetic. I like it.
Yeah, that's well put. Are we moving on to E-League, guys?
We'll move on to E-League.
Well, here, let's go over the top 10 real quick.
Oh, right. I skipped the overall rankings. There we go.
You killing me here.
No, I got them. They're up on the screen.
Guess what? Another week with Punk on top. He's still up there. Bonchan up to second with that win.
That's nuts.
Great. Yeah, he is right in the thick of that, and I think he's in. He's beyond the cut line of where I feel the qualification mark is going to be.
Where do you have that at? I know it hasn't been fully defined, but where do you put it?
I think it's going to be around 630. I'm a little more conservative with that than SRK ranking, who has it about 520, 530, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I thought that's what you started at, was in the 500s. At the beginning of the season, that was what you were kind of calling the cutoff mark.
I think it's going to come down to two things. One, who wins these premier events? Is it going to be guys like Punk, Haitani, Fudo, winning them all over and over again
and eating all the points? Yeah.
Yep. And are people's strategies going to change now that there's really no reason to not go to other regional events? I do feel that we're going to see a little bit more strategery, as a former president said, in picking events, and I do feel that will push the cutoff line a bit higher. It may end up being about 500 or so, but I still think 600, 625 is where you can start thinking, okay, I'm definitely safe.
Who's not on this list that you would expect to see on this list? If I can throw out such a broad question.
Well, Daigo's been going to a lot of stuff, and he's not quite on the top 10 yet.
Yeah. Where did Verloren get that many points? Obviously, you got some at Battle Arena.
He has been
Final round.
He did well at final round. I believe it was either the European premiere or NorCal Regionals where he went and did well as well. But he is racking up strong performances pretty much everywhere he goes. So he's definitely a player to watch out for in the early half of the season at least.
Pardon me. ELEAGUE Group D was probably the most hype I've had. Sorry, that's the CPT one. But ELEAGUE Group D has been probably the most hype broadcast that I've seen. And there's been some very hype matches and moments. Of course, the reason why I thought it was so dang exciting was because of KnuckleDu versus Xiaohai. That was the most exciting for me. It's becoming a curse, but when ELEAGUE does these broadcasts, they do these like the story behind. If we can cut back to, I think it's here. No, here it is. Wait, I'm trying to find this clip of. Yeah, that's not it. I can't find the clip. But here it is. They do these behind-the-scenes little featurettes on the players, and every time they do one of these for a player, almost I want to say without fail, it means that they're not going to do well. They did this badass piece on KnuckleDu, which I thought was really cool. If you can find it, go back and watch it. And this entire ELEAGUE presentation or broadcast is up online on their site, as well as the CPT replays that we showed earlier on Capcom.
KnuckleDu shoots an assault rifle in it, by the way. If that doesn't sell it to everybody.
And a teddy bear! And a fucking teddy bear!
Fast forward to that. Let's get to the part where, for some reason, he says he likes to shoot guns.
He appreciates guns.
Oh my gosh.
That was something I did not know about him. So
he's like the smallest dude in the FGC, and he's got this giant gun and just toting it around, blowing teddy bears up.
I do want to give him shit for these little chin hair he had going in this,
everyone was losing their minds about it. It was gross.
It was unimpressive. But here he is, just doing his thing, shooting guns at the gun range. But then he puts a teddy bear on there. I don't know what to say about this.
I bet you he like blessed it with Xiaohai's like essence or whatever, some voodoo stuff, hoping it would work for ELEAGUE, and guess what? It didn't.
But look at that damn rifle. Why? Anyway, shout out
because he can. This is the United States of America.
You're right. You know what? Say no more.
Well, we've been talking a lot about Du, but I mean, Du, maybe for the first time in a long time, didn't win this week.
That's right.
Yeah, he's looking human. Ended up third. He got double jeopardied by Xiaohai, the man he owed, it got repossessed.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We'll talk about Du and Xiaohai in a little bit. But Phenom's getting lost in all of this. This man wrecked shop. He beat Chris T 3-1. He swept Xiaohai 3-0. And no one's talking about him because of all the Xiaohai KnuckleDu stuff.
That was
this
exciting.
Man, yeah. And he did it by playing exactly the way that I love to see these young guys play. Basically, not being afraid to press buttons, not getting pushed off of his moves. This man plays so disrespectful, and I love it.
I want to pose a general question because I have sat and thought about this, and I play Nikali as well, so I understand the general idea here. But Phenom's play is so unabashed. And it's like he totally doesn't care. And he's the type of player, you'll run into these players online where they will be on offense, going at their pace no matter what. And the second you begin to throw them off, they just scramble and squirm until they get back where they want to be, which is constant offense. They'll throw a DP out, whatever. Those players win a little bit, but they lose more. But Phenom is somehow consistent, and I do not get it. And I like it. Just seems like random chaotic madness that always works to me.
There's one thing I like about his play, and I think this might go into what you're talking about. You see other players coming up that face like a Shen, a Daigo, an Infiltration, and they play so cautiously. They always give them credit for that the next read that they're about to make is going to be the perfect read, or the next play they're about to make is the perfect play. So they play more tentatively. They don't push their advantage when they have it. Phenom is just like, screw that. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. And even if you get him off of an offensive situation, he knows how. He doesn't have to scramble and squirm to get back into that. That's basically his MO. He's going to go right into that whether you want him to or not, and you're not going to stop him.
It should make him readable, though. In theory, it's like, okay, I know exactly where he wants to be and where he wants to get. All I have to do is occupy that space first. But
there's that frustration level that comes in where in your mind you're doing everything right. You're doing everything you can to get him from pressing DP, from going for command grabs, and he still keeps doing it. And your mind just sort of thinks, "Oh God, what the hell do I got to do? Yeah. How the hell?" I can't play this guy like I want to play this guy. I got to change my game plan. Well, and when you change your game plan, that's when you get into trouble, I feel.
So here's the thing about Phenom, which is that, wake up jab, and I think I've said this, but wake up jab versus wake up DP is in some ways a 50-50, where if you bait the DP and block a jab, he's at plus frames, he won. And if you do any meaty to beat the jab, the DP wins and he won. So despite the options not being a perfect in your favor in terms of risk reward, it is a real 50-50. So the strategy itself is somewhat valid. This strategy is made way, way, way better when you're as good as someone like Phenom or Kazunoko, who are known the most for doing it. When your offense, because Phenom doesn't really miss many anti-airs, and Phenom's, conversions off of pokes and conversions off of frame traps are among the best. So if you're constantly winning and constantly doing well on offense and you're in on someone, once they knock you down, they don't want to cede the turn to you. They don't necessarily want to bait the DP. They finally got in. They finally got a hit. And it's really basic. But the fact of the matter is, as Steve said, frustration, even for top players, plays a large part in it. And you see people who would often be baiting tons of DPs just trying to get that hit in because they're finally so happy that they got Phenom off them.
And that was kind of what surprised me with the match against Xiaohai, because he wasn't DPing. He really wasn't. Xiaohai was almost getting in the air for free and was winning most of those exchanges. But on the ground, it was just all Phenom.
Yeah, he has really incredible footsies, and I think a lot of people underrate Phenom as a player outside of his craziness. And it's the solidity of his play that lets him act like kind of an idiot, too.
I'll tell you what I thought he was acting like a showman, because when they were doing the interviews, this is my favorite part, because I think it's important to grow the fan base when the dude shows some personality. He was giving shit to the audience because they weren't applauding him when he was doing good shit. And he gave him crap. He was like, "Where's my applause?" Right? And they wouldn't applaud. And then he did really well. They started applauding for him. He's like, "I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, don't give me that shit anymore." And that
was great.
I was watching on the couch, and I was really enjoying it. I thought that you got to be a showman. You got to put on that performance on top of the performance in game in this current climate of the FGC.
He's really, really good. He's always placed, in the tops of tournaments he's gone to, and you're going to continue to see that. If there's a guy who hasn't won actually, I think Phenom has won a Premier.
Yeah, he won last year.
So yeah. I think he'll win another one. I honestly do believe that. I think he's one of the best.
Do you think he could take ELEAGUE, though?
Yeah, totally. I think he's one of the... I think the guys and winners right now are obviously the favorites. These are guys that you expected to kind of possibly make it. You probably expected Du over Phenom, but if it wasn't going to be Du, I thought it would be Phenom. So, the guys still in winners are the people I think, have the best chance.
Now, I know you wanted to talk about specifically KnuckleDu versus Xiaohai.
Yeah,
sure. A couple of things you wanted to point out. Are you going to hold on for a second? Let's look at these the prize purse here. This, Steve, if you will, break it down for us. The ELEAGUE Street Fighter 5 Invitational prize pool.
TLDR, someone is getting paid as hell.
Yeah.
$110,000 money match in grand finals. Think of the pressure that's going to be. This is going to be a situation unlike any of these guys have ever played in. We have people who've won EVO, who have made top 8 in EVO, but there's nothing like having 6 figures on the line for one set. And that is going to be insane to watch. The bracket, by the way, just to make sure we don't miss it, Phenom versus Fudo in winner's side. And on the other side of winners is Punk versus PR Balrog.
Oof.
That one's going to be tasty. Loser side, Xiaohai is going to face Wolf Crone, everyone's favorite player. And then Daigo versus Momochi.
We should do fantasy brackets next show.
I'll
Yes,
gladly do a fantasy bracket.
I will see which way people are falling out of winners, and then I'll try and get that together for you guys next week. Maybe we can even do something on Twitter. I'll see if I can make that work.
All right, Donker, you're gonna break down some of the things that you noticed from this match.
Sure. So obviously, Xiaohai's had a lot of tough time with KnuckleDu, and mostly it had actually been versus Mika, and we saw in the first set they played in winners that Mika was not working, and so he switched to Guile, where Du has actually been doing quite well versus Cammy this season. I think he's beaten Alex Myers. He's beaten a ton of Cammys pretty convincingly so far. But Xiaohai showed a few things in this matchup that were new to me, and I think new to Xiaohai's game plan versus KnuckleDu. And the first one we'll see here, I don't know if you can slow this down.
Sure.
From the beginning of the clip.
Okay.
But Xiaohai uses standing heavy kick in this, okay, so this is the second clip actually, but in this clip, Xiaohai uses standing heavy kick as a throw bait, and it actually doesn't go through, but the whiff recovery is low enough that he's able to, get a jab in after anyway. The way this throw bait works is as such. Cammy's standing heavy kick whiffs on crouching characters.
Okay.
If you're to crouch tech in this game, per se, or to tech a throw, you don't get a low move. You get throw. They stand up into the throw for the first active frame, and this will be a crush counter every single time. So if you read a throw, this standing heavy kick is really, really good as a high reward option for beating it, other than a shimmy. The reason you do it over a shimmy is because after you've dashed, you don't have enough time to walk backwards and get out of throw range. So in this case, he's forced to use a stand heavy kick. Here, KnuckleDu doesn't bite, but the recovery of standing heavy kick is low enough that the jab catches him after anyway. So this mix-up's pretty good, and you've seen Ryu players and Vega players do this for a long time, but I haven't ever seen a Cammy player do this.
Okay.
I'm sure they have, but this was pretty new for Xiaohai's game.
So then here's the other clip. Sorry, I've got them out of order for you.
Yeah,
what are we going to see here?
Here we're going to see him use standing heavy kick in another way, which is actually to catch the startup of Sonic Boom. And if you yet again go back to the beginning of that in slow motion, you see him whiff a standing heavy kick right here because he's reading a boom. Du jumps back, that's fine. He doesn't care at all. Low enough whiff recovery that he's fine. Does another standing heavy kick, and the second time it actually catches the startup frames of the Guile Sonic Boom. The reason this works is because Sonic Boom, like other fireballs, moves your hitbox way forward. And in this case, because Cammy's standing heavy kick is a crush counter move, lets her crush counter the boom and get the dash in. And this leads into my last point, which doesn't have a clip, but it goes through the whole tide of the match, which is Xiaohai really favored shimmying in this set a lot. And I think that was really, really smart, because oftentimes KnuckleDu's counter to someone shimmying him is he throws a Sonic Boom. Someone gets in Du's face, they do a throw or shimmy mix-up, they shimmy, Du throws a Sonic Boom. Cammy is so good at reaction punishing Sonic Booms that he tried to do that several times at the beginning, and sorry I didn't get a clip of that. And every single time he EX spiral arrows through, he V-triggers and then spiral arrows through, he supers through. And this made Du pretty lost. I mean, at that point with Cammy's walk speed, low forward isn't going to reach. You'd have to do something like forward fierce. None of it really works. So the shimmy is so perfectly safe that if you favor that, it really throws off Guile's defensive game plan.
Now, what did this do to his game plan right here, though?
Oh, the teabag? This is actually, this is option select high and low blocking in his face. There's actually 9. I'm sure he's... Xiaohai was finally getting, the retribution here. I think he knew that he had Du red at this point, and he was doing it from the beginning of the set, but I think he was finally confident enough to do something like this. Because, despite what we saw Xiaohai say on Twitter, and we're about to talk about that, he's always been kind of a game-first, serious type of dude. And to see him pop off with these shows me that he was very confident going into this match.
That was incredible. It's funny because KnuckleDu, there was that one interview that I think Yahoo Esports did where he said he's annoyed that guys like Punk are now doing the teabagging. But it was about time that came back to him.
I mean, if there's one person that even Yipes says you can teabag, it's probably Du, right? I mean, like, teabagging Du is, like, fair game, right? At this point.
Yeah, I would agree.
Can I say something about how like beautiful I found this whole kind of ordeal thing between Xiaohai and Du?
Say it.
Like not just because of the two of them, but because it kind of represents like this new standing that the Street Fighter community is in. It was Japan and then a couple of guys from different countries, all of them Asian, I think, that were winning everything forever in Street Fighter, you know, and America was always there, but it was always like, oh, maybe one of us got into the top 8 because we were lucky and got eliminated very quickly thereafter. But now Street Fighter 5 is much more than it ever has been America's game, and we're seeing players like Punk and Du come in, and with this personality where they're teabagging and taunting and making it fun in that respect. And all these other players, most of the Japanese players that have won, have always taken the game very seriously. They just come up, they play, they're impressive with their gameplay, but on the camera, they're just super meek and just there and thank you, and I'm gone, and that was it. But now, with America kind of setting the pace, we're seeing players like Xiaohai, like Shen, taunt, and put their personalities out there a little bit more, and it just does a little bit for the entertainment factor of the whole thing for the audience.
Speaking of entertainment factor, the tweets that came out after that match, my goodness.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's all part of it.
We have one of these. This is Du tweets out, "He got me. Good stuff, Xiaohai." And this is where I think the most personality Xiaohai has ever shown on Twitter came out. "Got you again. Well played, my friend. I hope this birthday was most memorable. Enjoy your teabags responsibly." There was quite a few teabag-related, hilarious tweets, including, I think, Richard Lewis, the British guy that hosts ELEAGUE, said, "I'll go buy you a drink." Because this was, of course, if you forget, Dudag's 21st birthday.
Yes.
And I think Xiaohai responded to that one.
Hope everyone just bottom Long Islands.
Yeah, don't get him any Long Island STs. Oh, my goodness. It's so funny to see people embracing the teabag and the shit talk and all that good stuff. And I think it really elevated the
and, you know, my first reaction to this was like, you know, oh, this is Xiaohai, social media guy, posting this. But then I realized, you know, Xiaohai was teabagging him. I mean, obviously there was some sort of, you know, jokes going on Xiaohai's part as well. I'm sure he approved all this. So, I mean, obviously he's on it too. And as John said, I think it's great that, you know, America's finally done something for the game, right?
The one thing I'm worried about for him in the finals is that I feel he was so focused on Xiaohai. Like in the quarterfinals, in the quarterfinals, he had 2-0 leads in pretty much all of his matches and lost. And lost one of them. The other two came back, but he pulled it out at the end. In the semifinals, other than the matches against Du, he lost 3-0 to Phenom. I mean, was this a case of him hyping himself up so much for that match and then not being able to focus on the rest of his opponents?
I'm hoping that the fact that he got it out of the way, because I totally agree with you. I think he was focusing on Du. I'm hoping the fact that he got it out of the way will give him the ability to like take the horse blinders off and now look at the rest of the tournament. Because Du's gone. He beat Du. So now he has to, you know, look at the other 7 dudes and say, this is my new game plan. Mm-hmm. I think this was probably huge for his game as a whole. Because, I mean, Xiaohai is quite emotional when he loses. And you could see every time he lost to Du, he was like, you know, more frustrated than the time before. So I think this will hopefully, for the sake of his game, be a big milestone.
Guys, I think that's it for Street Fighter V. We wanted to talk about the Danger Room. I know you're dying to talk about Injustice, but I had a question that wasn't on the rundown, but I want to pitch to you guys because we had recently Alex Myers not get his contract renewed with Ronin, I believe was his handle. We were talking about Winter Fox with XSK Samurai and 801 Strider, and I had a question for you guys. This is an obvious question, but I want to hear y'all's opinions. What is it that we're celebrating when a player gets picked up? Why is that such a big deal, and why is it sad when they're no longer picked up? It's not like they can't play the game anymore.
Well, I think for me, it's because I love fighting games, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here because I ain't getting paid for this.
Neither are we, Steve.
I'm getting
paid. Well, let me get on that plan. But I want people to enjoy fighting games as much as possible. That's why I do the schedules. That's why I tweet out the information. So if a person gets a chance to play a game they enjoy and do it, you know, and get paid for it and get to travel for it, that's great. And So that's why I enjoy seeing people getting picked up, not just in Street Fighter, but in these other games too. Kizzy K just got picked up. MK Leo or MK Rio. I can talk, I swear.
You tell us every week.
One of these weeks I'm going to get it right. Seeing those guys get opportunities in games that wouldn't necessarily get a look, 2-3 years ago. It's so great to see. It's so great to see. I know that people are afraid of esports as a whole, but this portion of it is something I enjoy seeing. Seeing players get the opportunity to play a game they love for, if not a living, at least a chance to see the world, have fun, go new places.
So you're living vicariously through these guys.
I do. I really do.
John?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I also, though, think that while there are people that fight against the whole idea of esports and the FGC transitioning that way, there are a lot of us that are excited for that. And every time another player gets picked up, that's kind of an evidence of, hey, we're a little bit more esports. There's a little bit more money going around for these players to, one, compete and get to watch them, but two, travel and better their craft and practice more against different players and become better overall. So ultimately, they can become more entertaining for us to watch too. And so I think it's exciting on like a multi-level kind of twofold thing. But in any case, like it does suck to see that when all of a sudden it's like I'm no longer with these guys. GG's. I enjoyed my time with them, and you go, maybe we're taking a step backwards in that direction from that initial direction. But I feel like all of these guys that left or left their sponsors recently, they're all going to get picked up again because they're all still, very entertaining guys to watch, and they're all, I think, growing their games.
I'm gonna be the woke one here.
The flat Earth.
I'm gonna be the geocentric one here, and I'm gonna say that I think esports and fighting games, maybe in particular, and the sponsorships are very immature right now. Immature. And, even at the top level of sports that are far, far more popular, millions upon billions of dollars industries paying for rights to broadcast games, you don't really get sponsored by a brand or a team. You have your team, but you don't get sponsored until, you're at the top of those things. Not every basketball player has a shoe deal. Mm-hmm. And I think the only sponsors probably making much money off their players right now are the players, winning premier events and doing stuff on that level. And I think you're going to start to see players of a lower level than that perhaps start to get less sponsorships as more of these things fall through and more of them come out to be, less big. And I think part of it is growing pains. Part of, this guy gets picked up, he gets dropped 6 months later. He says that no one paid him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying that those players, these players are very, very good. XSK Samurai and 801 Strider and all those guys are very, very strong, have done really, really well. But I think it's all right. And I think that if the FGC wants to change that, honestly, and I know everyone hates this, but I think some sort of team format has to be there in the future if people want more sponsorships in the game. Because if there's not, you're coming out on prize money and you're coming out on, trying to get good enough to get sponsored by the big boys. Because, in golf, these people make their money off prize money. Mm-hmm. And then once they're making their money off of prize money, then they get sponsored. These people aren't all Titleist golfers from, rank 200. That's just not how it works.
And I know you've turned down a bunch of sponsors because you're holding out for that Costco.
Yeah, I'm holding out for Costco right now. EG and Echo Fox. Rick Fox actually came up to me and he was like, dying. I was like, no, just don't even ask.
Have you worked out the
and
Costco
maybe we were
yet?
just in the same room and I was inferring that's what he was saying, but I'm pretty sure that's what he was going to say.
I'm not sure if this is still the case, and I'm sure it's different from team to team or, team to team, not sponsor to sponsor. But
it's good, though. I'm glad people are getting sponsored if it helps them get out to tournaments.
For sure. But AJ, who is now the team manager for Echo Fox's fighting game stable there, told me that their fighting game, because at the time he was Evil Genius when he told me this, of course they had Dota teams and all kinds of other esports teams, they take a cut of those prize money, of the prize winnings, but not for FGC. So I don't even know that, well, you would have to think that they're definitely getting a cut, right? Everybody has to wet their beak a little bit.
Waking up a little bit further now, right?
Okay.
Esports are often and this may come as a non-surprise to all of you, not profitable for a lot of, ventures going into them right now. They are done for the sake of when they will be profitable, right? Because people figure, traditional sports are starting to get less views. Kids are growing up, they're playing more video games than sports. So there's a lot of things that will happen and grow and change. And a lot of things that aren't making money now might make money in the future. So,
well, I suppose we can only hope.
We can only hope.
All right, guys, what are we moving to? Injustice, combo breaker numbers, question of the day, answers, block grabs, or what everybody's really waiting for, Donka playing Injustice 2.
I think it might not take that long.
I wanted to recap Danger Room, what that was.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
What happened afterwards a little bit. Because it happens here in my home turf in Arizona. It was kind of put on by Angelic, a repeat top 8 EVO performer for Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And so what this was, for those that aren't aware, was it's an 8-player invitational where they have this like very big house somewhere up in Phoenix. And they bring these guys in, and they have this like series of well, it's one big tournament, but they do like a round robin, and then they're seeded into a top 8 bracket. And the idea is to get the Marvel community hyped up for EVO, and then also for eventually the send-off and the transition into Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. So the way it worked was Angelic chose 4 players right off the bat to come, himself included. And then the final 4 players were put up to a vote, and that was done on Smash GG. But it wasn't a single voting process. It was you had to vote, and anyone that had curly points, curly mustache circuit points, they were eligible to be voted for. So people went on, and you had to actually, like, the first, I think it was like the top 10 players that were voted on were like acknowledged, and then there was like a whole second round of voting where you had to vote again. And this wasn't very clear. The process was a little bit convoluted, and so certain players that thought they were good to go, like who was it? Beneath Apology Man got like third or something like that in the initial voting process, but then didn't realize he needed to promote himself again to be actually voted into the competition, and ended up not making it, and was very upset about that. Took to Twitter, and there was a little bit of drama. Also, F Champ, playing his somewhat villainous role that we all kind of know and love him for, took to Twitter also and said, this is not a legitimate event because I wasn't invited, because KBR didn't make it out, because Justin Wong wasn't there, and he used one other name that escapes me right now. But there were reasons for that. KBR wasn't invited because he was talked to, but he's in Chile, and they couldn't afford the international plane tickets. If he was able to make it out to the States, they would have flown him, but that didn't happen. F Champ is seen as, I guess, not playing as much Marvel as he used to, and so I guess is not regarded as good enough anymore to jump in, or at least wasn't by the organizers of this particular event. And I don't remember the specifics with Jay Wong or anything else, but essentially the event was under some fire because of what these players were talking about on Twitter and such. But overall, and I talked with one of the co-organizers, everything went very well, and they were able to sell merchandise and such, and raise a whole bunch of money for the pot, and half of which went to the winner, who was Chris G. So he walked away with, I think, almost $5,000 for this event.
Dang.
But it seemed to really hype up things for the Marvel community, which was the ultimate goal. It wasn't necessarily get the top of the top 8 and see who's the absolute best. It was entertain the crowd, rile everybody up, and get us ready for EVO. And in that respect, I think it was successful.
I just like seeing a tournament be placed in somebody's house, that kind of thing. It's not, Marvel's not the first to do that, obviously.
Very much like Smash Summit, yes, same idea.
Dota Summit, all that stuff. I just think it's cool. It gives it a different vibe. More than, it just makes you want to hang out there. Like, hey, I wonder what they're doing. I've seen streams like that I thought were really cool, and I think we should be doing more of those. And I talked to Esteban Wolf, and I was asking him how he had done. He's one of the guys that got voted out, and he was head over heels excited about it, and he was crying about it, and it took him a while to calm down. He said he wasn't happy with his performance, but he said he had a great time. It was an awesome environment. He loved hanging out with the guys. Sounded great to me.
It's a thing, as a former Marvel player, and as someone who, by the way, if you look at my tournament record versus the players there, I'm 4-1.
Against?
I have beaten Angelic, Wolf, Not Enough Damage, and there's someone else on there, I think. Joey D, all in tournament, and they have never beaten me.
All right, well, put your money where your mouth is, and why don't you
But
go out to one of these?
outside of tooting my own horn, those guys would all kick my ass now. I really thought it was interesting. I thought it was slightly, a couple of the pieces, as John said, were a little off.
Yeah.
A few things weren't quite in the right place, and of course, it's about 3 years too late, right? I mean, Marvel is dead.
Oh, yeah,
But
that.
I hope they do it again for Marvel Infinite, because I
yeah.
think that this
There's already a
showed
plan.
that this could work, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is cool, even in a game that no one cares about anymore. In a game that people do care a lot about, that's new, that's fresh, it will be super sick.
You mean like Injustice 2?
Like Marvel 4. And so, I think that it was a success. Even though I think there was things that were wrong with it, I think it was overall a success, and I give a lot of credit to everyone who was there. I thought they made it fun. I think some things were a little cringeworthy and will go away. I think some things were awesome and will definitely come back. That's how these things go, and it could have gone. I was not sure at all how it was going to go, and I think it went a lot better than planned. I do think the format was a little weird. Chris G very blatantly sandbagged his way through the round robin and then won the event with ease. But, I mean, he said that, and it was really funny.
Why would he? What was the purpose behind that? Just like
Seeding.
Well, yes, but wouldn't he want to win the event so he would be far
The seeding barely mattered with how much better he was than the field. I mean, to be honest, there was only 2 players in there who were beating Chris G on their best day, and yeah, I mean he didn't even pick his main team for several of the matches in the round robin phase. Because I mean, in an 8-man tournament, the seeding isn't that relevant, right? You're probably going to play the same. You're playing them first round or you're playing them third round. But
yeah, I think the round robin was to just more make things exciting, give the first days something to do, and then also, I mean, it's interesting because in those situations, the player that's initially better off might not be by the time they actually meet in that top 8 bracket, because that gives the player that would have lost some time to download, and maybe that matters, for individual sets. So I think all in all, it was a good call.
Awesome, John. Thank you for that recap of Boiler Room. And for doing that report.
Danger Room.
Sorry.
Wow.
Danger Zone.
Boiler Room. Danger Room is a
Thinking of
joke.
that movie.
The Danger
That's a good movie, by the way.
No. Marvel is not Boiler Room. Melty Blood is what gets played in Boiler Room.
Well, no, Marvel 3 is going to get moved to Boiler Room, and then they're going to have Infinite in the next Danger Room.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry about that, guys. Let's talk about some of these numbers for Combo Breaker. Steve, please break them down for us, would you?
All right, well, Combo Breaker, the next premier event, not just for Street Fighter V, but for the Injustice Pro Tour, for Marvel, for Guilty Gear, for the Burst League. It's pretty much got a hand in every community, and the turnout numbers show it. Are they on the screen now?
Yes, sir.
They are. 645 for Street Fighter V to lead the pack. That is an increase over last year. This is, I think, the first Street Fighter V tournament on the Pro Tour that has more entrants than it did last year.
I mean, that's a testament to good tournament running and to publicity, because I think everyone who went to Combo Breaker last year, tweeted about how great it was. So.
Yeah, it was an amazing event. I'm still pissed I'm not going to be able to go this year, but have fun for me, please. But look at these other numbers. Injustice 2, first real major tournament for that's got over 350. That's going to be massive. Guilty Gear, that is the largest non-EVO Guilty Gear tournament in history, open bracket at least. Killer Instinct, a game that continues to do well. Skullgirls, almost 150 for that game. That game continues to do well. 150 for King of Fighters 14. That's one of the largest in the U.S. Mortal Kombat, a game that's supposedly dead as of today, that's still got 130 coming out. These numbers are ridiculous. And it just goes to show how much passion there is, not just for Street Fighter, but for all of these games. All of these games are on the come up. It's not listed here, but Super Turbo has over 100 entrants. Super Turbo.
And these aren't even closed yet, right?
No, it just closed.
Oh, okay, but you might still get more people at the door, or it's done.
Emergency registration, if you pay for it at the door, but you're going to pay a pretty penny for that, and you're not going to get seated. But just insane numbers for that event.
Is this an anomaly? I mean, you're saying it's because it's such a good tournament.
Well,
but
it's a great tournament, and another thing is a lot of games that aren't Street Fighter have, made their claim that, some tournaments don't treat them the same way. They don't get as many setups, they don't get enough room, they don't get the time slot. Sometimes they're playing in a bathroom or on a laptop between two trash cans, something like that. At Combo Breaker,
or in a boiler room.
Generally, most communities have felt pretty positively about it, and a lot of them have made it, because despite there being all these Street Fighter majors, right, if you go to a lot of these tournaments, they're not necessarily geared towards these other games. And so a lot of games have said, Combo Breaker is our Evo, it's our major, it's our tournament that we're going to make the one that if I live in Washington, instead of going to Vegas, I'm going to go to St. Charles, bumfuck Illinois, which, by the way, I'm from Illinois, so I can say that, to play, their game in this big, great, air-conditioned 24/7 venue.
what's going on with Killer Instinct? Why is Killer Instinct, goddamn, I know I'm going to get hate, not dying?
This is their major. I mean, this is their second, and this and the KI Cup are their, big tournaments. And Rick is like a big KI dude.
You know what always makes me sad about Killer Instinct is that everybody who plays it and talks about it says this is the greatest fighting game. More people should be playing this. But I don't see more people playing it. I mean, I don't own an Xbox, and that's why I don't play
It's
it.
a polarizing
the
game.
main reason.
Because it's on
Well,
the Xbox
I mean,
only?
it is available for Windows 10. My computer can't handle it at more than 10 frames a second because mine is like on its last legs. But I still, as soon as I get a new computer, that's going to be one of the first ones I pick up because that game, not just the quality of the game, but the care they put into it, the characters, the tutorials. This is the type of game you want to see succeed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Let's talk about the question of the day. Then we'll run through our block grab, and then we'll finish off with a little bit of injustice that I know you're just dying for.
All right, so building off of this whole issue between Xiaohai and KnuckleDu,
Yeah?
that brought up the subject of rivalries. So our question of the day is, what is your favorite FGC rivalry? We got a ton of answers. Here are a few of our favorites. Let's start with Baslu, who went with the classic Daigo versus Justin Wong.
That's a classic.
That is El Clásico, as they say in Spanish. YYD Films going way back into the vault. Dark Prince versus some washed-up veteran named Clockwork.
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 That was a little louder than I
Please
intended.
watch Dark Prince interview.
To this day, it remains.
It's Mike Ross's finest work.
It is. This is even better than Mike Ross in a tree, and that's saying something. Let's go with Scover 134, who recommends Mango versus Armada. Now, give Smash.
Did we forget to specify fighting games?
See, everyone wants to talk crap about Smash. That community has been so passionate, and they've done such a good job of cataloging the history of the game, so that you could look up and say, "Oh, Mango is 57-42 against Armada in winners finals." I don't know if that's accurate or not, but so shout outs to those guys. Juan 3D went with Daigo versus Infiltration in Street Fighter 4.
That was definitely a good one because, that one was like history changing or guard changing.
Let me throw a little spin on that. PR Balrog versus Infiltration in Street Fighter 4.
Mm-hmm.
The Hakan one?
The Hakan moment,
Yeah.
the Capcom Cup moment, the Evo moment. Oh, such a good series of matches. And then the last one comes from Johnny Beaver, who went with regional battles. And that's what we're kind of seeing with this Red Bull Proving Ground season. Really going back to my crew versus your crew, my city versus your city. Those are always so fun. I mean, you look at what KnuckleDu did for New York when he said NLBC is free. Mm-hmm. Guess what? All those guys are hungry now to shut him up.
Dude, I remember it was Evo like two or 3 years ago where we got to do the NLBC versus Wednesday Night Fights exhibition, and there was a certain I had never participated in anything like that before, and there was a certain excitement, like, because like normally like the Wednesday Night Fight guys, we were all like, you know, we were enemies for the most part when it came to gameplay, because we'd all be competing with each other. But to like unite together and finally like have Snake Eyes as not a threat, but like as a teammate and stuff like that, when he was in his ridiculous heyday, like crazy Street Fighter 4 Snake Eyes. It was just like there was a magic to it, and the fun and the competition from the East Coast, and you know it was awesome. So I really appreciate things like that, and it's cool to look back on all this stuff. I forgot like half of these things even happened. So this is really cool.
Now, do you remember even before that, the NorCal versus SoCal 5v5? I forget if it was at NCR or
that
SCR.
was even bigger. No, it was
Where
oh
he
my
just
gosh.
where he just ran. It was down to him. He had to beat the Snake Eyes had to beat the entire team by himself, and he did it. It was the most entertaining thing I saw that year. It was.
Can I tell a Noel Brown story about that real quick?
If you must.
Okay, I got there. I was on a date and I came late. And I got there to SCR and they were halfway through and SoCal was just getting bodied. And Noel Brown walks up to me and he's like, "Yo, you like SoCal, right?" And I was like, "I'm not gonna start betting right now. They're getting bodied." And he's like, 20 on NorCal. We got it. And I was like, "No, we don't." Like I totally didn't make this bet, but he was just constantly as player after player from SoCal kept falling. He kept looking at me. He's like, "You're gonna give me money?" I was like, "Dude, we didn't even bet." But then Snake Eyes turns it all around, and I just looked at him and like, "You're gonna give me money?" Of course he didn't, but it was cool because I got to like stick it to Noel Brown, who was gloating the entire time. So thank you, Snake Eyes, for that.
Any opportunity to stick it to Noel Brown, John?
Hey, good job. Sex jokes, I like it.
That was not intended as one, but you know what?
It was.
Let's float your boat.
Where are you going?
Why
with
did
that?
you bring a date to NorCal Regionals? or whatever?
It was Super Yan. It was Miranda back then.
Oh, okay.
She was part of the FGC as well.
That makes sense then.
Yeah.
Me bringing my girlfriend, that would not work out too well.
Oh, I brought my non-FGC girlfriend to an Evo one year, and the French team flocked while I was playing Alioun in just after pools. They tried to like swoop in and take her. It was bad.
Dang.
It's Monsieur stealing your girl.
Dude, it's a good thing they smell bad.
Gentlemen, let's speaking of which, there was one I resisted earlier. The famous matchups or ultimate rivalries. Chat said Smash versus deodorant.
You know what?
What's
That
yours?
is not a Smash exclusive thing.
Yeah.
I remember Combo Breaker. I forget if it was the first Combo Breaker or the last UFGT. I went, and there was only one person who was offensively terrible with his odor, and he was not playing Smash. Like a dude literally almost passed out walking by him. I'm not even kidding about that.
That's right.
So we're all united in that battle against the stank.
Fair enough. That's an FGC epidemic right there. I think all we have left to do is to enjoy an exhibition from...
We're gonna do the block grab.
All right! All right. Based on Bonchant's performance, John came up with the block grab this week, which was, are these characters really low tier, block or grab? We're going to kick it off with Bonchant's pick, Nash.
I'm gonna so block is they're not low tier, right? And grab is you're grabbing
Yes,
their low tier.
they're
So
low tier.
I am blocking on Nash. I think that Nash was a top tier character in season 1. He was a fantastic zoner who also had the ability to randomly get in there with his dash and start offense. I think that Nash is now a mid-tier character. He still has a very similar zoning game. It's been made slightly worse by the fact that he can't backdash as fast, he can't dash forward as fast, he can't position himself as well. However, he actually got a few buffs. His back medium kick is one of the best pressure normals frame data-wise in the entire game. He still has, a really good overhead. He still has the amazing fireball game. His dashes are not nearly as good, but they're still decent compared to some characters in the cast. Generally, the Sonic Boom anti-air game is largely intact. And I think despite being a not high-flying character at all, most of his V meter is used on V triggers to get out of the corner, and most of his damage is from fireballs and small combos. He's still decent.
That's a block on Nash as a low tier character from Donka. John.
All right, I will agree with Blanca. Oh, Blanca with Donka.
Blanca?
That was a block Donka.
Blanca.
The hair.
Wow.
That's what it is. No, I think that Nash. Okay, he was argued to be the best in the game when Infiltration came out and won 2 premier events back to back, the first 2 premier events, and then Evo, and we're like, well, dude, it's obviously Nash. He's winning everything, and it's true. He had a pretty damn big advantage with the fact that there were these 8 frames of lag, which is what everyone was talking about at that time, and his dash was somewhat hidden, and it was already exceptionally fast. Take those things away. Yes, he's not the character that he was. But remember, like, Infiltration was losing even before Season 2 happened. He went 0-2 at Capcom Cup. He started venturing out to other characters a little bit before that. And it might still be that, that was fiance time, and stuff like that, and his attention was being pulled in other directions. But still, the character kind of settled more mid-tier-ish later on in the first season. And then when Season 2 rolled around, yes, he got a little bit worse in some respects, but it's more fun for people to take that early mentality that he was one of the best characters in the game and jump off of a springboard as such, like Infiltration saying his arms and legs were cut off, which might be a little bit rash. And it's fun to say, oh, this character went from the best of the best to now the worst of the worst. And you heard people saying that he might be the absolute worst in the game, which I don't think there's much argument for at all. But you were seeing that all over the place. And so I think it was more people overreacting, saying he was the best of the best, and then liking to say he went to the worst of the worst. But I think mid-tier is a good place for him now.
It's 2 blocks. Steve, what you got?
Look, he's obviously not as strong as he was last year, but once your character wins a premiere, any complaints about the character are gone. So guess what? Get good. Block.
All right. I think that's a resounding.
So is Balrog next? I don't think Balrog's won a premiere. Is he a really low tier?
He's not actually.
No, that's one of the things that can end the argument.
Funny enough,
It's not the only thing.
I helped seed, and I'll publicly admit this because I've done it for like 4 years now. Combo breaker.
Now, explain what that means, because I thought that was just random selection here.
No, you put players in a list from I think it was 10 to 5 this year, and you said how good are they? Anyone below 5 wasn't worth rating, based on some scale. And I told them that Balrog players should be an 11, and they should just automatically be seeded as such.
Okay. And
You should put all Balrog players in the same pool.
I said that's like the death pool, right? Instead of having people who late register in death pool, it's just all rogs.
And death. Yeah, it's just a pool of V-trigger activation, slamming the side of your head against your stick and winning.
You know what? That would honestly be a good event. If once this game gets to 32, have pools be decided by character. Every match in pools is a mirror match.
I'm gonna run Mike Schiller's Balrog Cup. I'm gonna invite every Balrog player to one tournament, and it's gonna be because I remember at DreamHack Austin, Smug was like, "Shit, I've got to fight Balrog," because he had to fight Brian F. And I'm like, "You're a Balrog player." He's like, "I don't want to fight Balrog."
Because the character it lends himself, without getting into this conversation, he lends himself to thoughtless play. You don't have to be thoughtless to play with him, but you can be thoughtless and do really well with him.
Mike Schiller's Balrog Cup. The winner is like some Fisher Price stick with one button. Two. You have to turn around punch. So it's got 2 buttons.
I think you've been renamed Mike Shout of the Earth Schiller or Mike Blanca Donka Schiller.
Well, Blanca got destroyed by Balrog, so it explains it.
All right. Well, Balrog nor Blanca are on this damn list. Vega.
Oh, Vega? We're doing Vega?
Is he high tier, block, or low tier, grab?
I think, and I'm biased as someone who used to play Vega, I'm going to grab. I think Vega is one of the worst characters in the game. I think Season 2.1 is something to be seen. He got a couple buffs. I don't think they're as good as they look, which I could explain. But I think that in his current state, Vega is just utter garbage. I think he's one of the 3 or 4 characters in the game who could never win a tournament, like a really top-level tournament. He is too lacking in too many fundamental areas of the game.
Bonchan, if he heard this, would be really disappointed in what you're saying.
Bonchan can be as disappointed as he wants. I don't speak the same language as he does.
That's not what you wanted to say, but that's cool. I appreciate you keeping it PG. I want to specify though, if you block, that doesn't necessarily mean they're high tier. It just means they're not as bad as people make them out to be.
Okay.
I'm grabbing that he sucks, like real bad.
Yeah, and I I don't think Vega's the worst in the game. I think he has some good tools, but with the way the pace that this game flows at is kind of at right now, with all the burst damage and the utility of V trigger. Vega's V trigger is cool, but it doesn't stand up. It doesn't hold a candle to like Balrog or Laura or Guile or Urian or a lot of the rest of the cast. So his is like the single use that's not going to usually get him burst damage, and a lot of times Vegas will just use it to escape like the corner or something like that with a slide into a safe V trigger escape. So I don't think that he's the worst, but he might be bottom 5, and I don't know if he could win a tournament or not. I haven't thought that deeply about it and considered that, but he's definitely not that great. So I'm going to go ahead and grab saying that Vega is as bad as people make him out to be.
What does he wear on his hand?
Where's a claw, Steve?
Yeah. If you walk into a guy with a claw in a street fight, do you think that guy has no chance at winning?
You punch him once and it falls off and he can't put it back on.
And a lot of these characters can throw plasma from nowhere.
It don't matter.
He forgot how to put it. He forgot how to pick it up.
He's got a freaking claw.
This is the lowest level thinking I've ever heard you come up with, Steve.
That
this is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Dude, but what's funny is that's why I picked him. I was like, oh, he has a claw. He can hit so far.
You should keep picking him because you can win with him. Block. Get good.
What are you talking about?
We're
Can
blocking.
you win with
Chicken
him?
Little says block. Lamar123 says block. Brutality says SPD on that
No,
shit.
Vega's one of those meme characters where everyone who doesn't play Vega, except for John apparently, who is now my best friend, says that he's like secret top tier. Like one time they lost to a laggy Vega on CFN, he's like broken. Like
He's got some tools, but he does not have.
You
like,
cannot.
Balrog.
Only Vega players will ever
No one
like
has
talk about this
top
character as
tools.
bad.
So that's a grab, I believe, on Steve. Moving on to the next character on the list for blocking and grabbing, Chun. Is she low tier or not?
I think that Chun is... Okay, so it depends on whose metric you're going by, right? If you're like talking about, is this character as bad as like, you know, some of like a Filipino man says, like probably not, you know? Like I don't think she's like utterly unwinnable. And maybe I don't want to misquote him, but some people say I don't think she's utterly unusable, but I think she's about where Vega is, and I think she's a grab. I think she's quite bad. I think that Chun-Li lost everything that made her Chun-Li, basically. And, I mean, she needed to lose a lot of it, but without lightning legs to turn her neutral into mix-up, without, you know, standing short anti-air to have a consistent ranged anti-air, without, you know, the same recovery on her fireball, just every single facet of her neutral was downgraded to a point where she's just like a gimped version of better versions of her. I mean, characters like Guile is just almost better than Chun-Li at everything. And I think she's low tier.
Chat does not agree with you. Toluca Free, block. Mr.
I think she's pretty
block.
bad.
Chicken Little, block. Lamar, block.
She worse than
block.
Vega?
Chaos Bringer, block.
But she's down there. My worst, my bottom tier. Well, I guess I won't spoil it yet. I'll say it at the end.
Yeah, because we might have other characters down there. But
John.
as far as Chun goes, I think in Season 1, there is no dispute she was amongst the best, if not the best, in the game, at least where the game stood and where the community understanding was. But I think the only thing she really needed to lose was her air lightning legs.
I agree.
Just ridiculous pressure. And Capcom did go in and they cut a lot of strings. They hit her with the Nerf bat pretty bad, and she was all bruised up, and it was sad. But I still don't think that she's so bad that it was that she's to the point where she's like it's unwinnable. I think that Chun players got spoiled, but I don't think that she was nerfed into oblivion. And we saw, like, was it Goichi, right, that's still hitting top 8 with Chun-Li, and Ricky, although she's transferring to Cammy as a secondary as well, we're still seeing her use Chun-Li. And yes, I think it more boils down to we the Chun-Li players are pissed off that our character is not stupid broken anymore, and so now we're gonna call her trash. Similar to the way things changed with Nash, people love to say it's this huge overarching change when it's really like it was bad, but it's not that bad. So I'm gonna put Chun in the middle of the pack still, maybe a little bit below the middle, but not like non-viable status. So that means a block, I believe.
Look, you just got on me for talking about a guy with a freaking claw not having a chance in a street fight because he's facing people with chucking plasma, and then you're talking about a person who can chuck plasma. I mean, come on, pick a side. What's it
Yeah,
gonna be?
John.
Look,
This is the dumbest I've ever heard Steve be ever.
look.
This guy, I look up to him and how smart he is, but today I'm like, haha, you're an
Look,
idiot.
here's what I'll say. I think the exodus of Chun is a bit of an overreaction. You know, she's certainly much weaker than she was in season 1 when she was top 1. But to say you can't win with her, I wouldn't go that far. I think if you had a couple of these players who did stick it out, I think you would see more success with her than you're currently seeing. So, you know, and just on that alone, I have to say, get good. Block.
Yeah. Chun players are just being weenies because they lost their OP stuff.
Obviously.
All right, who's our next one, Efren?
This is our last entry. I think some of the people in chat will be disappointed. We're going to go with Fong.
So Fang is the one, Fong, you know, Fang,
Whatever, Fang, Fong,
whatever
Fing,
his
Fang,
name is.
Foom.
Fing Fang Foom is, and I'm actually a big proponent of the fact that I think Street Fighter V has some of the best balance, right? And I think that a few of these characters, I think Fang, I think Vega, I think Alex, and we're not even including Alex because everyone says he sucks, right? There's like no
Right.
real argument there.
Right.
I think they are getting enough better that a lot of these like obvious balance problems are changing. But in season 2, Fang is the one character where I look at Capcom and I go, how do you think this was okay? Well, other than Balrog, but that's the other direction. When you look at how bad a character is, I can understand why they thought Chun's nerfs were okay. I can understand why they thought Vega would be okay. I can understand why they thought Jirai would be okay. All these characters. Fang is the one where they took this character that was not performing and they nerfed him to the ground. I mean, he really got nerfed hard.
Wasn't it more of just a shift? Like he wasn't like his moves were more active but had more recovery, or vice versa. Or
He
something?
lost
So it was like
startup
a
frames
buff,
on almost every move. Standing heavy
right?
kick,
Because the
crouching
game was
medium
supposed to
punch.
be more about whiff punishing.
Right, but it just didn't work. The fact of the matter is, overheads are universally -6, and Fang can't combo off his jab, and his fastest medium that is in range, you know, down medium punch is 7 frames. You can like spam overheads on Fang. You can do things that you wouldn't dream of doing versus other characters on Fang.
And he doesn't have that damage output that other characters have too.
Yeah, he's just bad. This is like the easiest grab. He's terrible.
You're grabbing Fang. John?
I think it's funny that, I mean, obviously Capcom came out with Fang and wanted him to be this unique character with this very unique approach, at least as far as Street Fighter is concerned in this game. And they were successful at that. There's nobody like Fang. There's no one that plays like Fang. And there's very few damage over time mechanics in this game. And none of them are quite like Fang's. He was cool. He's obviously meant to be somewhat serious as he's part of the story in a big way. But it seems like even if they didn't intend for him to be there, he reached unofficial Dan tier, where he's become the joke character and the meme you'll see all over the place. And like every time people talk about the tier lists or where characters end up, they also end it with, oh, and by the way, nerf Fang, because it's just hilarious how behind the pack he is. I will admit that it's probably true that Fang is better than we give him credit for, because people are not playing him because they perceive him as so low, so he's not evolving and changing as much as others. And yeah, he does rely on a lot of gimmicks, but will he be viable? Not without some pretty big changes. And it's almost funnier if Capcom just doesn't do that and they like just take one more thing away from him, because no one's playing him. You look at like the popularity stats and stuff like that on was it V-League, right, online, and Fang is always like by far the worst. And so I mean, it's funnier just to make him jokier, come out with some funny costumes for him, ride that way, because the character's pretty much dead at this point in terms of like tournament vitality and stuff. So, I think overall Fang is still a grab. He's probably the worst.
Now, Steve, I know that you will probably refer to Fong's hat in your answer, but I'll go ahead and let you take it from there.
I wasn't going to go that route, but I mean, if the guy is brave enough to wear that hat in public, you have to be afraid of him. You have to. Get good. I can't say it. He's too low. I'm sorry. You can't get good enough to make him work. Grab.
What? So everybody grabbed on that. Why do people keep referring to him as Gen? Just because Shen uses him?
He's purple. Shen uses them. I've never heard that, so I don't know. But that's off the top of my head what I would assume.
But people make the argument. People thought Gen was bad until Shen really brought him out.
Well,
I think
yeah, but
Shen
Gen
tried
had
to bring out Fang and he
unblockables.
couldn't. So that's there you go right there.
He
Speaking of
still
what,
serves a purpose. He just does absolutely no damage. And in this game, that is such. You just can't win that way.
Yeah, you can just muscle your way in, even if your approach is incorrect 5 times, you get in on the 6th time, and then he also doesn't have much of a defensive game. So it's just like you look at the way the game plays with all the burst damage and the different types of threats, and you go, what tools does Fang have? Very slow stuff, very slow damaging things, and not a lot of burst damage. And it's like, well, you just can't hang.
It's like you have to play like your Dalsum, except you don't have Dalsum's tools.
Mm-hmm.
and I think the last one that we didn't get to that people talk about is Ryu.
Oh,
But
man.
I mean, Ryu sucks. Daigo dropped him. I think that's probably enough.
Isn't he worse if you played the CFN beta thing? Didn't they nerf him further?
No. They buffed him. They gave him back his standing light kick, which is like the move that people claim he needed. Like Daigo said he may try him again. So.
Oh, okay.
And most importantly, though, they changed his crouching heavy punch animation. They didn't touch Balrog, but they changed Ryu's crouching heavy punch animation.
That's a game changer.
But yeah, I said I would give my bottom of the tier list.
All right, is this your bottom 3 or what?
My bottom, the characters I think cannot win
Okay.
ever, and I won't actually include Chun-Li. I will say I think they are in no particular order: Fang, Vega, Ryu, Alex, and Juri. Of those 5 characters, 4 of them were buffed fairly significantly, except for Juri, who was nerfed. I think in Season 2.1, Juri is like, you're garbage. Like, you better stop that tier.
Wow. Y'all want
You
to
have
throw out
Ryu on
your
there?
lowest of the low tier?
I have Ryu in the current season, yes. Who plays Ryu?
Think about this. If he's strong enough to resist the obvious advances of Sakura, he's strong enough to win anything. Get good. Why?
Yeah, we're out of here. All right,
Yeah,
so
we're
see you later,
GGs.
guys. Thanks for watching the show.
I'm not playing Injustice. I cancel it. I'm
Dude,
going.
come on.
I am going to watch the Warriors Spurs game. I'm out of here. I'm not playing. I'm serious.
have
I'm not
Injustice-
playing.
Injustice is
It's
booted
why
It's
out.
not.
7:34. I do not want to play Injustice. I want to do anything but play Injustice. I don't really like Injustice. There you go. Spoiler.
You haven't even played it yet.
I don't need to.
But look,
I looked at it.
look.
Why does this game look like you're playing Street Fighter 4 in on a tube TV? Like, why are the health bars so high up that I have to strain my neck looking at them? Why can you
What
not
did
do a
Injustice
poke
do to you?
or dash? I just don't like Injustice.
It
Okay,
sounds like
but
some
try out.
underlying-
Injustice 1 was my least favorite fighting game ever. I returned it in an hour.
I just want to say that the views expressed by Mr. Schiller are not necessarily those of Best of 5. Its subsidiaries, its sponsors, including Costco.
I loved MKX, by the way. Thought it was a cool game. So I'm not hating on NRS. I just don't like Injustice. I think it feels like someone watched a fighting game once and then like tried to emulate it without ever having played it. Like, it took me an hour to dash, and she went like across the entire universe. That doesn't make sense, but I can't cancel
what are you
it.
saying
Like I can,
right now?
I can press the button 8 times. Listen to this. Wait. And she doesn't do a move.
So what are you trying to say?
Is it any different than MKX's flow? Like I thought that they were pretty similar in the
In MKX you
like,
can
inputs
run,
and-
and then you can cancel your run into a move. I don't know. I just I don't like Injustice. I gotta go see this game.
That's best of 5 for Tuesday, May 16 of 2017. We didn't have a guest tonight because we set all that
because
time
Doc was
aside
gonna play Injustice.
for
yeah.
Donkey to play Injustice. I was really excited, and then you just totally shit on all of my expectations like that. I really don't know what to say.
You guys are gonna have a fight when this is over. That's hilarious to
Just
me.
so disappointed, guys.
That's,
But
if we don't make it to next week, I leave everything to my sister.
I will support Injustice results. Whoever wants to put themselves through this game can do so. I love the Injustice players. I love Scar. I love all those guys. Good for you.
So that was Best of 5. I'm Efren. This is Mike. We were joined by our lovely co-hosts and co-panelists here. John Guerrero, he writes for eventhubs.com. You should go check out that site and make sure you leave nice comments on every article that he writes. You have Steve, Ace King Offsuit Jerk, who writes for .esports. If you haven't checked them out in a while, you should. If it's good enough for Xiaohai to retweet, it's good enough for you to read. And you should check it out and support them and others' works. So, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.